to anyone tapped in, tuned in.
Develop, translate.
This is the guy on the far left is Billy Carson, um, Westhoff, and then this is a moderator, and he hosted the debate. And then this guy, shout out to this guy. I already watched the debate, so it's gonna, you know. But anyway, this is my review to first time seeing Ring Them Bells. Shout out to Ring Them Bells. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, Billy Carson and Westhoff had a. Here's that. Well, whatever this is. I watched the debate, the raw debate. This is not the raw debate. I have yet to ever see this before. So, here's my review. Way too many words. But also,
So,
call me when you see
in
this.
kind of exploring, when you say it denies the crucifixion or the crucifixion is there, I mean, I can go on right now, Codex Sinaiticus,
call me
and
when
I can look up.
Call me when you see this.
The end of, say, Matthew 27, where it has Jesus being crucified.
Call me when you see this.
And that's in Codex
I'm
Sinaiticus,
crazy.
or
See, I'm
the John 19.
I gotta shut up.
27, where it has Jesus being crucified.
No, but seriously,
and that's in Codex Sinaiticus, or
call me when you see this.
The John 19, or any of the other ones. So I think my confusion is that it doesn't read any differently. So actually, are you able to pull up a website with the viewers or listeners or whatever be able to see that?
Right, to make sure I have the version that I'm looking at.
Where was that piece?
I found the text where I was referencing. Actually, I was misquoted. I misquoted there. It's the Gospel of Barnabas.
Okay, yeah. Well, so that's good. So let's deal with that too, because I've actually worked with. There are two manuscripts of the Gospel of Barnabas. The Gospel is a known forgery.
So let's stop and I love how Wes just presented everything and really just put facts on the table. What Billy was saying wasn't just wrong. It was like an outright lie that hadn't even been checked. And he said he misquoted, and then he immediately goes to it. But that's exactly what he said. And that's why Wes started the conversation with clarifying to know what Billy was saying, where it's come from. And he's quoted from saying that multiple times. And it's literally an outright lie. So he moves and says that it was actually the Gospel of Barnabas that he quoted. And Wes immediately has that locked and loaded to be able to defend and help us to understand and us see how textual criticism from internal cues inside documents can help us see if they're a known forgery or not. Let's check this out.
Okay, he's lucky. I'm sorry. Shout out to Ring Them Bells, but he's lucky he just switched back to the debate, because I haven't reacted. I watched the debate like 3 times, but I haven't reacted to the debate. So he's lucky, because I almost just switched to the original debate. Just kidding. Okay, Wes Huff and Joe Rogan. Oh yeah, so Wes Huff was on Joe Rogan. I don't think it's out yet, but God bless anyone tapped in, tuned in. Kobo, what are you doing, babies?
But there are internal problems with the Gospel of Barnabas, which indicate that it shows no actual indication of evidence of coming from or even having knowledge of first century Jewish understanding. It actually says Jesus is the Christ, but not the Messiah, which indicates that whoever the author is, he didn't know that those were the same words. And I think a bigger problem is that the Gospel of Barnabas actually paraphrases Dante's Inferno, which was written in 1314. So there's a lot of internal evidences that disqualify the Gospel of Barnabas, never mind the fact that we don't have any evidence of it prior to the 14th century, and none in any other language other than Middle Age Italian and Spanish. But the internal content of the Gospel of Barnabas disqualifies it from being ancient. And then the fact that it's doing things like paraphrasing Dante, or it also refers to a rule of the time of Jubilee, which was changed in the Middle Ages from what it was in the biblical year of Jubilee. And it goes with the Middle Ages concept, not the ancient concept. So I think what I'm getting at is, so I'm a historian and I deal with sources. So when I'm looking at sources, I want to make sure that I have a methodology by which I approach any type of source. So if there is something that denies the crucifixion, I want to make sure that I'm analyzing it and that the methodology by which I analyze it actually reveals that the content can be accurately tied to the event. So if we're talking about, say, Codex Sinaiticus, that's in the 4th century. Now that is, I would agree with you, Billy, our oldest copy of the Bible in the sense of cover to cover, Genesis to Revelation copy of the Bible.
Right.
The problem is that we have individual copies of all 4 Gospels going back hundreds of years before Codex Sinaiticus. So I have a facsimile behind me of P66. This is a late 2nd century copy of the Gospel of John. I work with this particular manuscript. I can just show the screen right here. This is an almost complete copy of the Gospel, and it has the crucifixion. So the only hesitation I have with what you said, Billy, is that we have single copies of the Gospels that can be which is that there's debate about it. It's a known forgery. I mean, no one's referring to the Gospel of Barnabas or anything.
Yes, but I'm going to go with that. Let's talk about the Old Testament a little bit, leading up into the New.
Well, hold on, because do you mind if I address the Gospel of Jesus' wife? So I just point that out is, once again, with our sourcing, I think we need to make sure that we're going towards not just early sources, but actually credible sources. And unfortunately, neither the Gospel of Barnabas nor the Gospel of Jesus' wife are credible sources in terms of actually, and agreed upon by not just the vast majority of scholarship, but I don't know anybody in the field of papyrology, paleography, historiography, who actually refers to these documents as being legitimate.
That's fair enough. I can respect that. So
God
let's
bless
go to the
anyone
Old
tapped
Testament
into
a little
it.
bit.
Wow.
God
so
bless
Wes just
anyone
put on
tapped
a
into it,
master
man.
class of textual criticism and helping us see how internal clues inside the Gospel of Barnabas
Look.
help us know that it's a known forgery. I mean, there's a
got
litany of information
Bro, I
that,
got
that
the biggest
disprove that
pimple
we could ever
in the
rely
world,
upon
but
this
it's
as a
okay
reliable
because I still
text.
love myself.
And then also
man,
the
this pimple's
Sinai Bible, how that was
huge,
originally
bro.
quoted by Billy Carson, and then he quickly pivoted to the Gospel of
Sorry, I'm not playing it back actually.
Barnabas, which is a known forgery, but was putting all his stake and claim in the Sinai Bible.
Shout out to
And
Bring
as you
Them
see,
Both.
Billy just as soon as he's done, he's like, oh no, we're just going to move on from that. The whole debate was hinged upon these facts. This is what Billy was coming to the table with. This is what he led with. That was his opening proposition, and Wes just completely shredded it. And Billy went to Chat GPT is trying to move on to his next subject that Wes will also shred.
Predominantly from my research, I discovered that a lot of information from the Enuma Elish and the 7 Tablets of Creation is a lot of the, in Genesis, a lot of the creation story that comes into Genesis. Not all of it, but because obviously it's a smaller, Genesis is a much smaller version of a much bigger story. But it's literally almost word for word from the Enuma Elish and the 7 Tablets of Creation. The Epic of Apekhan47 as well is also there in the Old Testament. Several other tablets as well, Code upon Marabi and a few others have made it into that text. Sumerian cylinder scrolls that talk about the creation story. Again, the creation story in the Epic of Apekhan47. And so we tend to see this copying of ancient tablets, text, and scriptures, even some papyruses, into the biblical text, meaning that my point here is that I think a lot of people are saying that this information was written in real time. A lot of people believe that. If you ask the average person, they really believe that. But a lot of this information is just copied from older tablets and texts from an earlier date. That's what I found, that it's made it into the canonized Bible, but they never referenced that they got it from any other ancient texts and tablets that have to do with a totally different civilization with totally different religious beliefs.
So now Billy wants to move on to the Old Testament. And this is from what we spoke about earlier. This is when all the connections are going to come in. And what Billy's going to present and say is that the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, actually stole information from other cultures, copied it, forged it, and just the whole Hebrew religion is just based upon forgeries or misconceptions of other ancient cultures that they just put into what they have. And there's no new knowledge or information for what they're doing there, nothing unique. They just copied and pasted what was on a mountain wall and ended up into their text. So I hear this all the time. This is why you guys are about to love what you're going to see, because Billy has some connection points that actually make sense. Because you see, the Bible actually does include other cultures' information, literally copying it into it. But what it does is it uses it as a polemic or a political witness against the surrounding empires. And what's very important to remember through all of this is that Israel was always underneath the heel or boot of the surrounding empires. They were constantly being captured, enslaved, wars coming upon them. I mean, the whole Old Testament is about this, Israel versus the nations and the gods of the nations. And it's this battle and it's this tension of being underneath the boot of the empires that leads them to include some of their these other cultures surrounding texts, because they're using it as a polemic or a political witness right back to it. In our modern culture, we don't get it, but if we lived in that time and place, it would make complete sense for why they included it. It wouldn't be thought of as a forgery. It's like, no, they're fighting back against these other cultures to let them know what is the right way, who is the one true God. So let's cut to Wes as he continues this epic debate.
Have you read the Enuma Elish?
Yeah, a lot of stories there, parallel stories that you see in the Bible, even the Tower of Babel incident, and many other crazy stories that are in the Bible. You can find a lot of those true stories in the ancient texts, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where you can find the true story of Noah. They found the Noah tablet to give him instructions on how to build the ark. It wasn't a big boat, it was a round disc that he built with sections cut up on the inside like a pie. That was discovered about 4 or 5 years ago. I believe it's at the British Museum now. So there's a lot of text that's just been covered and copied over into the biblical text. And I think that, in my personal opinion, a lot of people are just became a cargo cult.
Sure. Do you mind if I just jump in here for a second? I'm just curious, when you say that there are not just parallels, but there's actual copying, looking at Genesis chapter 1 and 2, where the creation story is summarized in the Bible, what are the actual kind of parallels there that you're looking to? Because as someone who's read both, I not only do I not find parallels, I actually, and this is the majority of ancient Near Eastern scholarship with me, think that Genesis chapter 1 is actually an apologetic against documents like the Enuma Elish. So what are the parallels there?
Separated the waters from the waters, for example. That's in the Enuma Elish. And that's also in the biblical text.
There are superficial parallels, I would agree, the separation of the water. The concept of the earth being formless and void, that's also in the Enuma Elish. However, I think all the other details, it's the details that make the difference. And if we're looking at not the superficial crossovers, but the actual themes and concepts of what it's saying, you don't have a creation within 7 days. You don't.
I'm going to take the Enuma Elish and put it into the biblical text. There's certain words that they utilize that let me know that they copied it from that text. Like, for example,
so what words?
Separating the water from the waters, the void, the earth being void. That information is literally just copied over. So it tells you that somebody saw that and said, let me add it to this book right here.
What's underneath all of this is the key question. What is the Bible? It's not a golden tablet that dropped out of the skies from the gods. The Bible's own claim about itself is that God chose a specific group and a specific people in a specific place in a specific time to record and capture events through oral tradition and writing. Then later, around 300 BC, scribes and editors underneath the influence of the Spirit would combine these texts and stories into one complete narrative that they called the Tanakh. This emphasizes something very important about the Bible. Not only that it was led by the Spirit, but that it was written by humans in actual space and actual time and in a specific culture. And the truth that God intends for us is wrapped up in that specific culture, in that specific place, and in that specific time, not our modern Western context that we try to force it into, that Billy Carson is trying to force it into. Before we continue in the debate, let's pause and get some context and some help from some biblical scholars like Dr. Michael Heiser and some other great scholars as well.
All right, I got
theologians and historians.
Would God be smart enough to know I'm not just going to write to this demographic of this civilization now, knowing I'm a God who created the whole world, and people are still going to be studying this thousands of years later.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but I don't want to come off.
Yes. So how I would answer that is I would say this.
So the biblical authors began from an observational standpoint of a human standing on the ground.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, God created what's up there
The sky above,
and what's down here.
the land below my feet.
Yeah. And so the whole of the biblical cosmos essentially takes up and is described with language of what a human sees when they're on the ground looking about. And then they'll make metaphysical, they'll ponder the nature of God, and then begin to describe what must be above and beyond the cosmos that can account for the snow globe in which we find ourselves. For example, so the biblical language about the earth assumes that we're on a flat disk. The edges of the land, the four corners of the land, the waters under the land, the land is on pillars, the sky dome above.
Yeah.
And this is how the biblical authors assume the cosmos' structure.
So understanding this while we read helps us to make sense of things like the windows of heaven opened,
Yeah.
or just odd phrases that might seem odd to us, but actually make a lot of sense in that ancient perspective.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one, this is just about trying to understand. There's another issue that comes along with how do I
come to terms with the fact that that isn't how the cosmos is ordered?
exactly.
I mean, that's true of all of these points that you have here, this ancient lens. What do we do with that?
Yeah.
Do we impose that ancient lens on ourselves as the norm, or do we just recognize that's the vehicle of communication, this ancient culture?
Yep, that's right.
We need your help. Ring Them Bells is a non-profit organization where every dollar donated goes right back into the mission of spreading the good news and helping those in need. The main ministry of Ring Them Bells is serving those in need in the name of our King Jesus. We create pop-up feeding centers all across the United States to help feed the homeless. We also specialize in hurricane relief. We go into the hardest hit areas. We bring free cooked food. We bring important supplies. We're going to bring prayer to these people, and most importantly, we bring hope to those in need. And you can help with this. Over the past year, we have fed over 2,000 meals. And next year, we want to double that. We can't do this without your support. Everything we create here and all of the food that we serve is free because it's paid for by generous viewers just like you. If you feel led to donate and join the mission with us here at Ring Them Bells, click the Give Butter link in the notes and comments of this video. For anyone who donates monthly, we want to say thank you. We're going to mail you out some swag. You're going to be joined into our exclusive Bells Angels Club, where you'll get swag and exclusive content that no one else gets. If you can't support us financially, please continue to like and share the content, as this helps us so much with spreading the good news about what Jesus has done for our world. God is growing this community in ways that I could never imagine, and I am so grateful to be a part of this with you. We are literally just getting started here, folks. Stay tuned. The beginning is near.
A culture is going to make certain assumptions about what common knowledge is. Like if you're writing a flood story, there's going to be elements in there that everybody should just know. I mean, there's going to be some unique elements in there too. And that would take us back to, okay, if you're using the raven thing, you know, that's probably not like in everybody's story. Water's probably in everybody's story. But the raven thing is a little too narrow. So you had to be looking at that. You had to have some reason that was useful to you. Okay, we'll come back to usefulness and reason. I'm going to show you something. I did not have to read this. And I'm going to show you two things I think tonight. And I've given both of these to John, and we'll put these online. But this is from a book here, from Babylon Bank. Actually, I have my glass. And the first and the second, the first article, but the second, the Genesis of Genesis by Hurwitz. Hurwitz is a cuneiform guy and a biblical studies guy. This is from it's in the Biblical Archaeology. We put this out in the Biblical Archaeological Society. So is the creation story Babylonian. So he's going through all this stuff, and you know, there's our buddy George Smith. You know, we can lay all the blame at his feet, you know, for a lot of this stuff, and then Dale is just going to come into the picture.
The hell is he talking about now?
For our world. God is growing this community in ways that I could never imagine, and I am so grateful to be a part of this with you. We are literally just getting started here, folks. Stay tuned. The beginning is near.
A culture is going to make certain assumptions about what common knowledge is. Like if you're writing a flood story,